Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. When someone in the congregation dies, I will usually meet with the family prior to the funeral. Part of that is to allow them to help plan the funeral, perhaps suggest a hymn or two, but another part is to let them tell me about their loved one. Even if I have known that person well, the way the family saw them and loved them is important for me to hear about as I think about the remarks I'll make in the sermon. Often when we meet, I will spend time telling them about the funeral pall. A funeral pall is a large covering that goes over the casket, or one that fits over the urn in the case of a cremation. Primarily, my goal is to share with them that the pall is considered a baptismal garment. I will tell them that just as their loved one had been wrapped in the righteousness of Christ in their baptisms, so now, even in death, this cloth reminds us that their loved one is still covered and wrapped in that same righteousness, love, and grace. Then I will talk about the democratizing nature of the pall. Whether we have a jewel-encrusted casket or a simple pine box, what people see is the pall. We are all alike before God. We are all alike in needing God's grace. We are all alike in receiving God's grace. When you go to a funeral and you see a pall or an urn pall, this is what it means. This week, during this Holy Week, as we draw closer to the observance of Jesus' death and the joy of his resurrection, I am sharing some things about the altar cloths that you can see on the altar every Sunday as we celebrate Holy Communion. Today we want to focus on one of them called the pall. Right away, you may see the connection. Palls are used at funerals. And in Holy Communion, we are talking about Jesus' body and blood given in his death for us. The pall used at communion is usually a covered square of firm cardboard or plastic that is used to cover the chalice before and after communion. The word comes from Latin and generally means mantle or simply cover. Now, frankly, while this isn't really a problem for us today, ancient medieval cathedrals were open to the outside, so insects could fly in, and the pall helped to cover and protect the wine from those insects. They also had the problem of dusty rafters that could drop dust and other things down, so again the wine was protected by the pall. Originally, the chalice would be covered by the back half of the cloth that rests under the chalice, and we'll talk about that cloth on Thursday. And then, during the Middle Ages, they used a second cloth to cover the chalice. This cloth was starched and folded over so it had stiffness and provided shape to the veil covering. Now, we use a piece of cardboard or plastic that is covered in linen. So, as we draw closer to the death of Jesus, it's important for us to note that we cover the bread and wine, the body and blood, with a pall, just as we do a casket or an urn at the time of death. The pall sits directly on top of the chalice and marks that the meal we are sharing is a meal of death for Jesus and a meal of life for us. As the funeral pall reminds us of grace received, the pall at communion reminds us of God's grace given. It's just a small moment in worship as we remove the pall and place it to the side. But it's worth noticing. It's worth being thankful for the gift of God's grace. Thanks for watching. And remember to let this day belong to God.